looks pissed off. It's like he's thinking.
He's not thinking anything. First thing the embalmers did was to stick a metal hook up his nose, and they dragged his brain out through his nostrils.
Why on earth would a museum put a mummy in it?
Come closer, please. I've something to tell you. Ladies and gentlemen, how do you do?
You are invited on a guided tour of a world of darkness. Your nightmares become reality.
Blood and Black Rum Podcasts. Antholoween.
Hey guys, welcome back to the Blood and Black Rum Podcast. I'm Ryan from ColdSploitation.com, and I'm joined with my co-host Martin.
How's it going?
Pretty good. We are back with our Antholoween series. We are now 5 deep into these.
Wow.
And I think before we talk about what the film we have on the show is today, I want to do the annual check-in of how you're feeling after 5 anthologies. How's it going? You know, we did this with Saw. We're like, how you feeling? How you feeling after 5 Saws? We did it during
Not
the
even.
Halloween.
I think by the third one, like, so how you feeling?
Yeah. So how are you feeling after doing 5 anthologies?
Run down.
Yeah. I think that's just the recording schedule that we have. Because we've been pretty busy. We've done 4 anthologies. We did the Phantasm 2 episode for J Movie Talk podcast. There's just a lot of podcasting.
A taxing episode in of itself.
And you know what? This is not our day job. This is not something that we do, all the time. This is just things that we do on our off time. So it is difficult for us sometimes to make the time to do all of the podcast episodes. And so when we get into Halloween season and Christmas season, that's when we go like full blown every week. But like we used to do that. We used to do every single week back when we were first starting out, and we did like 100 episodes straight, just like week to week to week to week to week. That's tough. It's a tough schedule. So I think that might be one of the reasons why you're feeling run down.
Had to take a week off of work this coming week to be prepared for the final stretch.
The final stretch meaning your 30th birthday? That's the final stretch?
No, I meant the last couple of episodes.
Gotcha. With that said, though, I feel a lot...
You were supposed to save that for next week.
Sorry.
When it actually was.
I feel like with the anthologies, though, that I feel a little bit more refreshed with each episode, because it's not like you're watching the same type of series all the time.
Really?
You're getting different stories.
Yeah, you are, but they're all named Tales.
What does that have to do with anything? Just because they're named Tales.
They all have, the same type of just like, oh, look at this goofy story. Oh.
Yeah, that is true. They do have that sort of feel to them. But I like that we're getting different types of stories. We're getting different opening segments each time. The wraparound stories, we're getting a little bit different. And we see like the types of anthologies. Some just are like, here's a story, here's a story, here's a story. Some are like, here's a wraparound story that will like contain everything. It's interesting to see how each film goes at the anthology in a different way. So I think I'm going to say I'm still feeling refreshed. I'm ready, raring to go. We've got 3 more episodes, something like that.
Yeah.
So I'm good to go.
I'm not worn down, but it's starting to get taxing.
I think we're actually coming into some of the anthologies that we enjoyed the most too, or at least one for me that I enjoy the most, which would be a blast to talk about. Some of the other ones we were kind of like offshoots. We were like, you know what, we should cover those. We don't necessarily love those movies, but we should cover them because they're important parts of anthology series, like Twilight Zone, the movie, the one that we covered last week. That's an important anthology film. We don't necessarily love it as an anthology film, but it's something to cover historically, in film context. All right. With that said, we're talking today for our 5th anthology movie about Tales from the Darkside, the movie.
The 90s.
That's right. We're back we're in the 90s now.
In the 90s, we're just barely in there.
We skipped from 84, 83, was it 83? 83, I think?
84.
84. We skipped right from there to the 90s. Right in the beginning portion of the 90s. We're in 1991, I think? 1990.
Yeah, just barely.
Just barely. Just grazing it.
You know what's great, though, about this movie? You know how when we did way back when we did the J Movie Talk pod episode on Friday the 13th?
Yep.
And we were talking about how over the 3 films, you slowly start to see the 80s creep in.
Yeah, the transition from 70s to 80s.
Yeah, because, the first one came out in 80, 81, and you're like, it still looks like the 70s, a little bit 82, a little bit more 80s, but still kind of 70s-ish, and by the third one,
you're smack dab in the 80s.
This movie, oh no, we left the 80s. You can tell just by the way they look and how it's shot. Mm-hmm. Fucking 90s.
But definitely very much centered in the 90s.
Early 90s.
Because, so obviously Tales from the Darkside has that moniker, the movie, because there was a TV series as well. Don't get confused. The one in theaters, that's the movie version. We're not showing the TV version in theaters. But the Tales from the Darkside TV series is heavily, late 80s, early 90s. Very, very much so. To the point where when I'm watching it, I sometimes cringe. There's wood-paneled houses and dirty-ass cityscapes. And I think we get all of that in Tales from the Darkside, the movie. Every single...
All it was missing was a rap-like opening.
That's true. Yeah. Something like that. We even get sort of so there's icons, too. There's Debbie Harry in here. We've got
the lead guy from the New York Dolls.
Yeah,
as the hitman.
Yeah, and then
that's kind of at that point, even by 1990, at least Blondie was a little bit more popular going into the 80s. Mm-hmm. Really, the New York Dolls.
Yeah,
I understand their importance, but it would go on to do a lot of other films and stuff. But it's just kind of funny. Debbie Harry's the one that really just because I don't really the other guy I've seen in other stuff, but her not so much. I was kind of really? Why?
Just randomly throw Debbie Harry in there.
Yeah.
Then the other thing that you've got too is you've got that very, very stereotypical 90s city
early 90s
aspect.
Yeah, look.
You've got the Seinfeldian cityscape, the taxis that are prominent, especially in that last film short of the film. Those types of things just really scream 90s. We're smack dab in it. But yeah, you're right. There's no real transition.
I'm going to say one of the things that was doing it for me was when Julianne
Moore.
Yeah, was wearing her funeral garb.
Yeah.
And it had it was the black, and then it was it had the sheer,
lacy thing. Is that what you're talking about?
Yeah, but on her arm, so it's
negligee, sort of thing.
It was that's something I've seen a bunch of time the early 90s.
Christian Slater's sweater vest that he's wearing to tennis. Very much in the style of the 90s. Not something you would see too much. And the short shorts were in as well. There was a period where it was short shorts. Then you go back to the long baggy ass shorts.
Now I say they moved from the night. Great way to tell the difference. Is it 80s or is it early 90s? The great way to tell is it's not neons anymore. It's pastels.
That's right.
Still bright as fuck, but they're pastel colors now.
Yeah. But yeah, so 1990s we're in. Tales from the Darkside, the movie definitely came at a time where a lot of the anthologies were then blossoming again. You had Creepshow and Creepshow 2 already releasing prior to this film. And in a lot of ways, Tales from the Darkside, the movie, is sometimes considered like Creepshow 3, as Tom Savini has said in the past, that it's sort of like the normal follow-up to Creepshow, for one, because George Romero is part of it, adapting a Stephen King story.
Let's say wrote a story, didn't actually direct.
Right, yeah, not directing, but in the adaptation, it's an adaptation of a Stephen King story, which is basically Creepshow. And so there was that whole, anthologies were big at this time. And you had Tales from the Darkside, the series. You had Tales from the Crypt, the series, which was going on at the time on HBO. So very big time for anthologies. And Tales from the Darkside, the movie, was a chance to capitalize on that. And in one of it's most, I guess I would say, creative, but it's a different aspect from most anthologies that we've covered. There's only 3 stories in this one.
Only hour and a half long.
Yeah. So there's 3 stories. They're about, like 24 minutes apiece, basically like a Tales from the Darkside episode.
Which kind of makes you wonder, why wasn't it just a TV show?
Yeah, I mean, they could have done. Yeah, I mean, why decide to do a movie version of it?
Because it does kind of come off as very TV movie-esque.
Well, I will say to you that if you've never seen Tales from the Darkside, the series,
I have not,
then you are missing out on some serious primetime TV, because when you watch a Tales from the Darkside TV episode, you're like, wow, this is a 90s TV episode.
What even channel was it on?
Huh?
What channel was it even on?
I believe it was on CBS, actually.
Oh.
Yeah, CBS, yeah. Yep. So, but when you watch it, the production values are very low. It was, it was the lesser version of Tales from the Crypt in pretty much every single way. It did still get a lot of those same writers and directors who would work on anthology films. So a lot of the big names that you can think of actually directed episodes of Tales from the Crypt or Tales from the Darkside. Tom Savini being one of them, directs a Halloween episode of Tales from the Darkside.
You're going to be doing that.
I know. I keep saying it. You know what? Because I said Tales from the Darkside, inferior Tales from the Crypt. I'm sorry. It's the watered down for television Tales from the Crypt.
Cable friendly.
Because HBO, you can get away with anything.
You're paying for it.
Do whatever. But Tales from the Darkside, not so much. But yeah, Tom Savini directed an episode that I watched not too long ago. It was called, I'm not going to remember the name of it now. So it's something like something very generic for Halloween, like Trick or Treat or something like that. But yeah. Check that out. It's a weird episode.
It was just an episode of Tom Savini being, hello, I'm Tom Savini. It was just him sitting there eating a bag of peanuts for 25 minutes.
No, it's actually a precursor to like Sam from Trick or Treat, because it has a Halloween troll who comes around because you're not giving out candy on Halloween. And the Halloween troll is like playing tricks on you because you don't give out candy. And eventually ends with the demise of an old man. And it looks like he had a heart attack, but no, he was killed by the Halloween troll. Just gave that away if anybody was going to go watch it. Sorry, ruined it. Ruined it for everybody.
30 years in the making.
You've never seen Tales from the Darkside, the movie, right?
Nope.
First time? For me, it's the first time watching it in full. I had seen portions of it when I was a kid, when I was about 5 years old. I remember my dad playing this movie in his movie, we call it the movie place. It was a rental store. And
what's that?
Yeah, VHS rental store, by the way.
What is that?
Yeah.
Go on.
They're on cassette tapes. And you actually went there to loan them. And then you had to bring them back. And you had to have rewound them. Or else people at the TVs, at the VHS store would have been very upset with you if you didn't rewind them.
Be kind. Please rewind.
Please rewind.
That was the best part about renting a Sega game. You don't have to rewind it.
That's true.
Yeah.
And so I remember this series being on the TV when because my dad would play videos all the time, just to put them on and have people come in and stuff, which was probably risque, especially when we're talking about Tales from the Darkside, which does have a little bit of nudity in it towards the end. Just having that play in the corner of your TV, of your video store.
Is that a porno that's
out? Right?
No.
But so he did play that, and I was there, and I remember seeing the boy in the cell, and I was like, Whoa, that's kind of creepy. I was envisioning myself as the boy in the cell at 5 years old, being like, I'm Matthew Lawrence. I could be that Matthew Lawrence. I never went on to play Sean's brother in Boy Meets World.
Are you sure it's not Jonathan Taylor Thomas?
Does look a lot like John. They have that similarity.
They do look very alike. But
at that time, I feel like Jonathan Taylor Thomas was a little bit older than Matthew Lawrence, maybe?
No, he's younger than Matthew Lawrence.
He's long.
Yeah, because when Home Improvement came on, like 94, 95, he was like 6 years old, 7 years old, or whatever the hell.
That's true. Yeah, I guess you're right. I was getting my 90s and 2000s confused. I didn't realize Home Improvement was that late in the 90s.
It was like 93, 94.
Gotcha. Yeah, so
how can you forget? Home Improvement led to the greatest Family Feud host of all time. Yeah. Richard Karn.
That's true. That is true.
Also partial to Louis Anderson,
Well, I'm Louis Anderson.
Kind of amazing that he got his own cartoon show, isn't it?
It is weird, even to think about now. Life of Louis. I feel like it's a bad dream of that it was on, because I do remember it. I don't remember anything about any episode, but I do remember.
It's like Coming After Animaniacs and Blue Beetle. Life with Louis. Louis Anderson.
I remember it as a TV show. I don't remember ever watching an episode. But yeah, Tales from the Darkside, the movie, kind of scarred me for life at that time. And I'd never seen it again. But tonight we changed all that.
Mm-hmm.
All right, let's take a break before we get into each of the segments in the film. Let's talk about the
beer.
Well, I would say beer, but we have cider today.
Because
CIDRE if you want to be fancy.
Seeing as we, as you all well know, live in upstate New York, real upstate New York, the Adirondacks, and that SNL was just taking pot shots at our traditions of picking apples in our free time.
Yes, they were.
For fun. Goddamn Kate McKinnon. Who the hell does she think she is?
Have they ever been upstate? It's a blast going to pick apples.
It's all we have.
That's right. You go out there, and sometimes it could be cold and 30 degrees and rainy. Sometimes it's sweltering and 80 degrees.
Most of the times you go up there, the apples you're picking are terrible. But that's okay.
We have fun.
It's clean living.
Fun doing it.
Good godly living.
I love
Actually, I'm kind of surprised people were that really offended and pissed off by it.
Were they really?
On Facebook, yes. I was reading the comments because I was just kind of amazed. Like, really?
I wasn't offended. I thought it was funny. I thought it was funny for coming from this what we would call city folk, who probably haven't really been apple picking up in upstate New York. But no, I wasn't.
Well, to be honest with you, if I was from New York City too, or any city, and they're like, well, "This is what we do for fun up here," I'd be like, "You fucking kidding me?"
Yeah, right. I mean, that's probably what they're thinking. That's really this whole part of the skit is like, us city folks are quite different from those.
I mean, we have to live like having like crappy palates. We can't just be like, you know what I want today? Greek. Have to drive like 8 cities over just to like, hey, there's a Greek restaurant.
It's true.
You know,
we live in the medium. We settle for what we have.
Yeah.
So,
well, I thought that was funny. But seeing as it's been getting colder than a witch's tit out there and the leaves are turning that nice autumnal colors, I figured instead of doing an Oktoberfest, because I think we're kind of starting to run out of Oktoberfest in the area to try, we'll try something that's very readily available in our area, and that's hard cider.
Yeah.
Because ain't there just a shit ton of cideries around here?
We do get a lot of cider. And 1911 is probably one of the biggest local cideries that we have within New York State. I think that's one that we get the most around here.
Based out of Lafayette, I believe.
Yeah. Handcrafted in New York, it says.
Yeah.
Yeah, Lafayette, New York. Yeah.
Never been. See,
no.
I do see like see them in the Come to New York State ads and stuff. Like come to upstate New York. And,
I don't even know. I have any idea where it would be in upstate New York, but somewhere.
You have to break out a map.
We'll have to pulling it out right now. Look it up.
Well, why would we go when we have Rogers?
Well, I think one of the big 1911 beers that they've got right now is the
I mean ciders.
Huh? Ciders. Is the it's a apple cider donut, I think,
Yes,
right?
yes,
That's like one of the biggest ones that they've got going on right now.
Yeah, the fall cider donut.
But we don't have that one on the show. We didn't get that one. We're not basic girls.
Well, you haven't even had that one yet, have you?
No, I have not.
Because it is delightful. It tastes like you're drinking a cider donut.
We're not basic boys and girls. We didn't get the generic cider donut one. We got a different one. We wanted to be different on the show.
We wanted to be super upstate New York in the fall.
That's right. We're Canadian.
Well, we're close enough.
Either one.
Close enough to the border. And by close enough, I mean 3 hours away, but still.
So you picked up the 1911, and they call it the Master Series because this is a special craft that they do. They don't always do this one.
Probably small batch.
Yeah. And you picked up the Maple Bourbon Barrel Aged Premium Small Batch Hard Cider, which is a very long name. It's a very, very long name. I think they've even taken to abbreviating it on the can. They call it the... I got to look at this now because I know I saw it on here.
The Maple Bourbon Barrel Aged.
Yeah, but they use a abbreviation. Yeah, MBBAHC. They've even gone so far.
That's more of a fucking mouthful then.
They've even gone so far as to abbreviate it. It's just a very long ass name.
Honestly, if there's anything they could truncate on it, instead of saying bourbon barrel aged, just say it's maple bourbon.
Yeah, right.
Obviously, if it's something like a lot of things because a lot of things they're like, oh, we aged it in bourbon barrels. It's just like, okay, just say it's something whatever bourbon, bourbon flavored.
I guess they didn't want to take the risk of thinking that they infused like a bourbon flavor and like an unnatural flavor to it. It's a natural flavor. It comes from the barrel. They aged it in the barrel. Whatever the case, I can say for certainty that the beer, I keep saying that. We always do beer.
Yeah, you're going to be doing that
Fucking
with
Christ.
that and...
I can't get my words straight tonight.
Yeah,
The cider is very mapley. It's got a nice bourbon flavor to it and also cidery. And you know what that means? It's extremely sweet. It's an extremely sweet cider. On their scale... And their scale goes out of 6 for some reason. I've never really seen a scale go out of 6 before.
I like that instead of like the IBU scale, you got a sweetness scale.
But no, I do like that. I just have never seen a sweetness scale on a scale of 1 to 6.
Maybe that's a standardized hard cider.
I guess so. They've got a special scale. But on their 1 to 6 range, and I'm assuming the 1 is the less sweet. And
nice
6
dry,
is the
like
most
nice dry, extremely dry cider.
Very dry. This one comes in at a 4.5, which surprises me because it is so sweet that I'm wondering what a 6 would be.
The same thing.
I'm wondering.
Same thing I was thinking.
What the fuck could you, when you drink it, do one of your teeth fall out? After
your pancreas just seizes up and you're like, yep, I got diabetes.
Yeah, when you have something really sweet and like your jaw locks up for a second, I imagine that's what a 6 must be like all the time. You just have a sip and you're like, oh, my jaw, and you're like, I'm going to the dentist tomorrow. That must be a 6.
It's like, oh, there's my dead tooth. I got a dead tooth now. Nice, instant decay.
Yeah. Because this 4.5 to me is extremely sweet. It's a very, very sweet flavor.
What's our first big SAT word that Ryan likes to bandy about on the podcast? It's very what?
I love to say it. Everybody should be able to say it in chorus. It's very cloying. It's a very cloying flavor.
That hasn't been brought out in a while because we've stayed away from the sweet things.
That's true, yeah. But it is. And I'm not saying cloying in the terms of like the maple is too much or the bourbon is too much. It's just the sweetness itself. It's not any one flavor that comes out and is like very in your face.
I would say it's definitely the maple that's very in your face.
If
you're not a fan of maple, you will absolutely hate this.
Yeah, that is true. If you don't like maple, you're not going to like this at all.
It's almost like, as I said to you, and I really like it because I like maple flavored things. It's kind of like sucking on like a maple candy.
Yeah.
Or like a maple sugar cube.
Mm-hmm.
That you would get down at like Peaceful Valley Farms.
It's just extremely sweet. And I say that in a good way. I mean, I think it's a pretty good cider. But just you cannot drink a lot of it. It's very difficult, and even it takes a long time to get through one can. This is a 4-pack that comes in the tall boy cans, and it's going to take you a while to get through that 16 ounces.
It took me over 2.
Yeah, it's just, I would say that this is not something that you're going to have all the time.
It's a nice, I would say it'd be a really good dessert, like, you know.
Yeah.
Like if you were going out to the campfire on a nice fall night, and you're just going to have like one while you're sitting out there, perfect.
Yeah,
Like, or like it's Thanksgiving, you're about to eat some, you know, ice cream and pie. Maybe have a little bit of this, you know, to pair with it. Not the whole can, because you're already stuffed from all the shit you ate during Thanksgiving. But, you know. So I would say it's like a nice dessert cider.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's just a little much when it comes to trying to drink, you know, a lot of it. And at 6.9%, you're not going to drink a ton of it. But I will say that the alcohol content does not really seem to. It hasn't affected me as much as I thought it would at almost 7%. It's not as strong as I thought. Although you do say that there's an alcohol taste to the end of it that, you know, becomes a little bit much. After you swallow, there's that little bit of lingering alcohol aftertaste.
Yeah. Not like much, but it's noticeable enough to where it's kind of just like ugh.
And that's probably partly the bourbon as well. That bourbon,
and I think it's also like something that even like lighter ciders I think have that problem too, because it's just I don't think really the alcohol pairs well with like an apple, because an apple is kind of like depending on what type of apples you're using can have very mild taste. So
and I will say that the bourbon itself does not seem super pronounced. It's a very mild flavor that's kind of overshadowed by the maple.
It's kind of funny too, because you don't really get like it is more like I said, why even say bourbon barrel age? Because it's not like you're tasting like the bourbon barrel, like the oak and smokiness to it. It really is kind of like very sweet maple with a hint of bourbon to it. So it's not like you said, usually if it's like something that's bourbon barrel aged, you get like I taste the smokiness and like the hints of oak and such. Yeah, you don't get that in here.
Yeah, not as much. I mean, I think I mostly get the maple and then just a little bit of that bourbon flavoring. Not too much.
Which a smoked maple bourbon cider might be pretty like weird, but kind of good.
Yeah,
you know, like it might like be something that kind of tones down the over. Like you'll get the maple sweetness, but it might not be nearly as pronounced, and you get that like more, you know, bourbon barrel flavor to it.
Yeah, I will say that I think that I'm somewhat ready to move on from Oktoberfest as we get towards the end of our anthology series. I saw an advertisement for a cranberry Berliner Weiss, and I thought that sounded great. Moving into the winter time.
Well, we are out of Oktoberfest season, technically.
Basically.
It goes from mid-September to the first Sunday in October. So
as much as I love Oktoberfest, we've had so many of them, I'm ready to move on to those cranberry sours and some of those other wintertime,
nice
types
old
of
ales. Bring in the holiday with a nice old ale.
Maybe not an old ale.
Maybe we'll get lucky.
Maybe an old Fezziwig. I do enjoy my old Fezziwig.
Well, I got fucking news for you, buddy. They ain't coming back.
It better come back.
It's not. You saw Sam's fall pack.
I know.
It was literally the 76, the lager.
I love the old Fezziwig.
The Oktoberfest and their Cosmic Sour.
Old Fezziwig.
If you think their winter pack's going to have anything other than the 76, the Boston Lager, the Winter Lager, and then it'll probably be like some crappy new concoction IPA, you're wrong. The old Fezziwig's good and dead.
The old Fezziwig is great because when you think of somebody named Fezziwig, you think they smell like nutmeg and
coriander.
Coriander, and that's exactly what old Fezziwig tastes like. So.
I know, it's great. I'm gonna miss it too, but you know what? It's gone.
It's dead.
If anything, they'll probably bring back like their chocolate Bock or something. Like something that people are kind of like, eh.
But you know what? We still got a couple weeks of October-style beers, so we'll probably grab some ciders or...
Can we start like a nice letter campaign to Sam Adams and say, drop the Winter Lager, because nobody really likes the Winter Lager, and just make it the Old Fezziwig?
Should. But I think, we'll have a couple more Oktoberfests on the show, or Oktoberfest and another cider, or something like that, to round out our anthology series. And then we'll move on to those winter beers that I'm super excited about.
Feel nice and toasty.
All right, let's get into Tales from the Darkside, the movie. So we'll start out by talking about the wraparound story that Debbie Harry stars in.
Deborah Harry, as you so
Yes, Deborah Harry.
accurately.
For this movie, she did not want to be known, not even as Blondie, not even as Debbie Harry, but the professional Deborah Harry.
Well, probably because somebody already has a SAG card as Debbie Harry.
That could be perfectly honest. That definitely could be. But yeah, it's interesting. I don't really know where Debbie Harry, I'll call her, and shoot and go right in the middle there. I don't really know where Debbie Harry came from in terms of like why her for this star. Well, it's not really a starring role, but it is like the main role of Tales from the Darkside, the movie, to set each of the three stories in motion. And I don't really know where that came from, but it's an interesting story that I think would be nice on a new release, which Tales from the Darkside, the movie, has not had a new Blu-ray release in a while. So definitely something for one of the boutique Blu-ray labels to work on. But I don't really know where it came from. Why Debbie Harry? No one knows.
I know, that's what I said.
No one knows except for the director and casting crew.
Maybe he was dating her or something. You'll be perfect in my movie.
Yeah, and the director was John Harrison, by the way. Don't know. I don't really know much about John Harrison, to be honest with you. But that wraparound story, it takes place in Debbie Harry's her character's house. She's basically like a witch type thing, like a witch Hansel and Gretel type.
That's what I was thinking. Yes.
And she's captured Matthew Lawrence in a cell, and there's that first initial reveal where you see Debbie Harry. She's a very nice house lady. She's cooking. She's getting cookies ready. And then you see Matthew Lawrence in a cell in her kitchen. And you're like, what? Why is she imprisoning kids? And then you see that he has this book called Tales from the Darkside. And at that point, you're kind of thinking like, well, maybe this kid's evil. You know, maybe he's the one that's doing all the storytelling that's causing mischief. But no. It's really just Debbie Harry wants to eat this kid. She's very hungry.
That's not PC.
Huh?
That's not PC.
No, it's not. No. So I think this wraparound story is okay. I mean, in terms of setting up the stories for each of the three, it's kind of lazy.
Well, where the hell did he get the book, for one thing?
Yeah, it's
did
like
he have it with him? Was it in the cell?
Yeah,
it
must have been in the cell or something.
She's just like, here's some reading material.
Yeah. While you wait to be cooked, here's a book. You know, have at it. How did he read all of these stories in like one sitting? I don't know.
He looks like a well-read child.
I guess so.
You know, for like an 8-year-old, he's.
But I would say as a framing story, and that's the word I was looking for when I was doing the anthology films prior to this. I was looking for framing story. I found that phrase in my vocabulary now. As a framing story, I feel like it's a little lazy to just have him telling stories and like, hey, I want to tell you a story before you cook me. Let me tell you a scary one that I was reading.
If anything, he should have said, this here's a story of a girl.
Yeah.
Cried a river and drowned the whole world.
It's a little early for that, I think.
I know, but that's, you know.
Not in the 90s yet, but.
That's where the inspiration.
Yeah. You know. But I think that's, I mean, do you agree that just having him read stories is a little lazy in terms of setting up why there are 3 stories being told?
Lazy, yes, but it's not like Boris Karloff just, I'm Boris Karloff.
No, that's true. Just being like, I'm Boris, I'm going to tell you some stories here.
You know, it's obviously not, I at this point, I'm convinced nothing's going to be good as Tom Atkinson, you know, just beating his child and wife and popping open a cold one, you know, as, you know, this lovely, you know, heavy metal comic book style art comes to life. You know,
that's true. Nothing will top that. I just felt like Tales from the Darkside's setup was a little lazy in that it's basically just a kid telling 3 stories to a woman, and that's it. I mean, that's your story. And then the wraparound story being he makes up his own story about escaping from the cell.
I would actually say, too, it's better than the Twilight Zone one, too, because at least, even though it's lazy, the Twilight Zone one's like, what the fuck does it have to do anything with the Twilight Zone?
True.
You're just kind of like,
it's not even.
You're just kind of like, Dan Aykroyd.
And that's not even really a framing story because it's basically just 2 events that happen to open and close the film, but the tales in between don't have any. I mean, there's nothing else to do with them. So yeah, I mean, I guess if you're going to have something like that, at least make it so that, there's a point to it.
Honestly, you know what? Okay, as the 5 films we reviewed so far, I'd say it's third. It's behind number 1, obviously, Creepshow. Number 2 would be Tales from the Crypt, because that's a really cool setup.
Yeah.
3 would be this, because it's just, okay, it's a bare minimum. Twilight Zone would be number 4, and then number 5 would be Black Sabbath with Boris Karloff.
Yeah, just be like, I'm Boris Karloff, I want to tell you some stories, and
here's some people running around.
Yeah. All right, so the first story that we get after that framing story with Debbie Harry is called Lot 249, and it's a story that was written by Michael McDowell, who also, of note, wrote Beetlejuice.
Not Malcolm McDowell?
No, not Malcolm McDowell. Michael McDowell.
No, wrong McDowell.
Different one. So of note, he wrote Beetlejuice, and he writes 2 of the 3 stories in this one. Lot 249 starts it off, and this one starts a lot like the crate from Creepshow, in that there's a mysterious crate being delivered that's rather large and looks like it houses something dangerous.
It's not even a crate, it's lot.
That's true.
Lot
Yeah,
249.
it's a lot. Comes from some sort of museum or something. And of note, it's delivered to Steve Buscemi, who is here in a younger iteration of himself. Still looking like a character that he would play in a Portlandia sketch in this one. Not only does he have like his slick back hair and he's,
big, thick book glasses.
Rather nerdy in this film. He also is wearing a rather dapper vest, fall-like vest, which has some leaves scattered on the back of it. It's a very, very stylish vest that he's wearing, and I approve of that.
I approve of what Christian Slater's wearing, his nice, white tennis outfit, very short shorts, but a sweater as well.
That's true.
Because,
you never know. You get too hot, you get too cold. If you get too hot, you can take off your little sweater vest.
He's obviously not playing hard enough if he's wearing that sweater.
For sure not. Yeah, if you are able to, if you're not sweating in a sweater, then you're just not playing tennis. I don't know what you're playing. You're basically a wall that someone's hitting the ball back to.
Is Jeff Daniels wearing a sweater in The Squid and the Whale?
No, because he plays his heart out.
As he's competitively putting the beat down on Laura Linney? I think not.
No. Lot 2.
If anything, though,
yeah.
Chris Slater looks like, and I notice this now more after watching this than like previously. He's a poor man's Charlie Sheen. Constantly looks like he's passing a kidney stone.
Yeah,
he's got like that agitated face on.
Yeah, he's got a wince on all the time. Yeah,
which I don't really remember him doing that much in Heathers, but I do know from his more recent filmography, very up the alley. And as I told you, because there's a nice scene where he puts on a leather jacket. I go, does he have it in his contract somewhere? Christian Slater needs to have a leather jacket on at least one scene, because I feel like every film he's ever been in, he's wearing like a leather jacket for at least half the film.
At least a little bit. I don't know. To ask Christian Slater. Like, is that part of your contract?
He's like, yeah, that's probably am, man.
Lot 249 is probably the most star-studded of the stories in this.
In hindsight.
Yeah. It's got Christian Slater, Julianne Moore, Steve Buscemi. And, that's probably the most of the films. I'm trying to think of the others, and I don't really think they have anybody else that's has popped since Tales from the Darkside. But the story involves Steve Buscemi getting this Lot 249 into his apartment, and Christian Slater and his sister's boyfriend go there to check it out, and his sister's boyfriend is kind of an asshole. He's a very rich, hoity-toity asshole. Also involved in some scandals, like his sister has stolen a, what do they call it? A Zulu fetish or something like that? Little sort of like dildo-esque looking thing. And also has been involved in making sure that Steve Buscemi's character was not accepted into Pembroke because they actually cheated on an essay that kind of cheated Steve Buscemi out of getting in.
On the proposal.
Yeah. So Steve Buscemi's out for revenge, basically. And he wants revenge against Christian Slater's sister and her boyfriend and anybody who gets in his way. And so Lot 249 is sort of that revenge. And it houses a mummy. Yeah, Imhotep. Basically. A very desiccated mummy that's falling apart, designed by K&B, who has done all the effects work on this film. And I don't know if you know, but this story is actually based on a Sir Arthur Conan Doyle short story.
I didn't know that until I looked that up. Yeah. I was looking up info for the movie.
And I have not read this one. Don't really know much about it.
All I really know about Sir Arthur Conan Doyle is, besides the Sherlock Holmes, is they had like a crappy USA WB show back in the 90s.
Oh yeah, they did, didn't they?
Yeah. I can't remember if it was like Sir Arthur Conan Doyle's like Adventures or something.
Something like that. Yeah.
And they're like trapped on an island.
Yeah, I forgot about that.
Kind of in the vein of like Hercules and Xenia.
So I don't really know much about the short story that it's based on, but this is pretty much your straight up revenge story. And it's kind of interesting to note that Lot 249 at the beginning sort of has like a supernatural element to it with the mummy. And then as the mummy awakens and becomes the killer, it almost turns into a slasher because of the way it sometimes depicts the mummy like standing in the aisles of bookshelves, just waiting for its victim.
And sitting there with a wire hanger.
Yeah.
And then disappearing.
It's almost just like, instead of being like a mystical mummy, it's like just any old killer. It's kind of loses its supernatural element and becomes just a killer that's waiting around like in any other slasher film.
Well, this takes place after Jason Goes to Hell, so this is Jason's body,
prime slasher.
Yeah,
it was just interesting because I thought it was going to go in a different direction, and then as I saw him as the mummy just waiting in corridors, and the film really does not hide the mummy at all. It's like very readily apparent that it's going to be the mummy who does the killing. I just found it interesting that it sort of took on a slasher element rather than anything supernatural. And it became just a regular revenge story for Steve Buscemi to get his revenge on the others that have kind of did him wrong. One thing is that Julianne Moore's red-haired demeanor in this is, again, a very hoity-toity rich lady. And she doesn't get a lot to do in here. But still, I think her appearance here is pretty good. And I would say Steve Buscemi is actually really good in this role as well, as playing it up as like the nerdy guy who then becomes kind of sinister towards the end of it. I think he does a pretty good job.
Yeah, no, I think out of probably all the stories, easily probably the best cast. Yeah, surprisingly, and I think that at the time that was not like intentional. There was more of like a happy accident. I think because at the time, the only kind of bigger star would be Christian Slater, because Steve Buscemi wasn't, like a pop icon at the time, and Julianne Moore, hadn't really. I don't think she really started, getting big movies until the mid-90s. Yeah. It just seems like that was, a starting point for a lot of them. And it just worked out that they were all in the same short in Tales from the Darkside at the same time. Now, some of the things that I think work really well in this short, I like the effects with the mummy, especially when they're digging through the mummy, when they're like, Steve Buscemi's actually like wrist deep in his, the mummy, like feeling around. And that's a pretty tactile little segment there. I liked when he ripped out the onion. He's like, oh, an onion. Yeah, he's just like, oh, an onion. He's like, oh, I'm going to use that with my steak later. A nice stew. Fry that up. You know what? That's like ancient onion. That's probably pretty good. Probably flavorful. Very. It's infused with human blood. Fermenting juices, yeah. Formaldehyde. It's probably great. I don't know if they used formaldehyde back in the ancient Egypt, something similar.
some sort of embalming fluid.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting, and I like that. And also, I like that this slasher is sort of creative in that the mummy's like, all I really know how to kill people is like how I was killed. So I'm gonna take his brain out through his nose, or I'm gonna
Stuff you full
of flowers, and go with that. I do like that. It kind of defies belief because like when a mummy is embalmed, they don't know what's happening to them. But apparently this mystical mummy does.
Imhotep does not forget.
He doesn't, no. But I thought it was a pretty effective story. Straightforward, but creative, and I like that. I think it was a pretty good opening story for Tales from the Darkside to really start things off.
Now, as you say, because it's straightforward, which I agree, here's where this movie's kind of handicapped. The way it's shot, the way it looks, and how straightforward it is, it comes straight across as this is not a film. This is a TV episode or a TV movie.
Yeah, the episode very well could have been a TV episode. Cut out a little bit of the gore, and you have a TV episode. And it's actually, even the gore itself is really not that explicit. It's more left up to the audience to kind of imagine the gore.
They would literally, like when the one rich hoity-toity kid's getting his brain pulled through his nose, because it's cut away, you don't see it, but you see the blood splatter. They just have to take the blood splatter out.
Mm-hmm.
That would be good enough for TV. That makes,
Yeah, I mean, I think it would very much get away with just being an episode. But I guess, too, you run that line, like we were talking about with Twilight Zone, the movie, where it didn't really feel like any Twilight Zone episode. And then you have Tales from the Darkside, which feels exactly like a Tales from the Darkside episode. So, which would you rather have? A movie that's based on a TV series that doesn't really feel like it's, TV show inspiration, or would you rather have it just not feel like it at all? Or feel exactly like it?
I mean, I get why they did it. You get a lot more money by making a fucking movie than than you do just making the TV show. But at the same point, if you're not going to do anything to make it feel like it's jumped from the small screen to the silver screen,
right, go a little bit more in depth.
Yeah. Then what was the point?
I think in the later shorts, they do go a little bit further with it. Obviously, the last short has nudity in it, and you're not going to get that in a Tales from the Darkside episode on TV. Or like the second short, which has a little bit more violence with the K&B effects, which we'll talk about in a second. So maybe that's what they were going for, and the first one just doesn't showcase that as much. With that said, I feel like the first one would probably have been a very effective Tales from the Darkside episode. Because Tales from the Darkside was incredibly hit or miss. Like, there would be episodes that were good, then there would be episodes that were just blatantly garbage.
Well, that's the same thing, though, even like when the kids' version, Are You Afraid of the Dark?
Right.
As much as we like to be nostalgic about it, from what I remember from Are You Afraid of the Dark, as much as I loved it, there were some episodes that you're like, oh, that's pretty good. And then there's some episodes like, this is dog shit.
Yeah. And Tales from the Darkside is the same way. I mean, there are just some that just completely fall flat. So this would have been top tier for an episode, I think. All right, so the second segment is based on a Stephen King story called The Cat from Hell, and it's adapted to the screen by George Romero. Again, both worked on Creepshow. In this case, George Romero doesn't direct, but his inspiration is somewhat here because it tells the story of a guy played by William Hickey, and you probably best know him from Christmas Vacation.
Yeah, be my stogie.
I was going to say, I was waiting for you to be yelling that out when we were watching it.
But he plays an old man who has a pretty great pharmaceutical company that
runs New Jersey.
Basically has made him very rich because his drug is addictive. It's basically a psychedelic drug that people take to have, then they have hallucinations, then they get addicted to it, and it's extremely expensive. So, as
he knows the pharmaceutical game well, then.
He does, yeah. As Halston puts it in this segment,
it says
it's basically just a step up from like street crack.
Street junk.
Street junk.
Because, it's basically, it's hallucinogenic heroin.
Basically. And actually, William Hickey's character himself is actually hooked on it. So he just, if you watch him throughout the film, he's like popping pills consistently.
That's where they got it from the Mangler.
Yeah.
Just, except instead of junk, it's antacids.
That's right. But William Hickey is convinced that the cat that he has in his house has been killing off everybody in the house because he's lived with two of his sisters, and they ended up dead at the cat's paws.
Kind of sounds like a story that we know.
What's up?
It's like that kind of sounds like a story we know.
Which one?
Creepshow.
Yeah.
With the my cake.
Yeah,
you
right.
didn't break me my cake.
Yeah, he does in a way. He does sound like that. Yeah,
well,
because
I meant more like the fact that he's living with like his two sisters and the way it looks and stuff.
Yeah, right. So the George Romero element that really comes to play is that when William Hickey is telling the story about why he thinks the cat has been murdering his sisters, it's all shot in this very bluish lighting. Which is very reminiscent of Creepshow, although it's not as well done in this one.
No, it looks a lot cheaper.
Yeah, it definitely looks chintzier in this one than Creepshow, but it does have that element of like, they're telling a flashback, so they're giving you that lighting to play up the flashback sequence.
I just want to know why his sisters are dressed like 1920s flappers.
Yeah, they were, right? Yeah. They were dressed like 1920s flappers, but they were 80 years old.
Yeah. And Halston's looking like, the best way I could describe it, the way he looks like the fucking husband in the Tom Petty video, You're So Bad, with his like overly big suit and just like hair kind of flipping around and sweating the entire time.
Well, that was the look then,
which came out in 1990 as well. So fits right in.
Giant pleated pants, like room
nipple
for
high,
room for double. So the whole story really revolves around this cat who we, as the audience, we're really and also Halston really. For the most part, throughout William Hickey's story, we're kind of taking it at face value that William Hickey's not a fucking weirdo who's been, eating all of his own supply and has come up with this weird story where he can't accept his sister's death and he blames it all on the cat.
I just love the fact that he feels the need because we're like, well, geez, how are they going to explain? Excuse me. How are they going to explain a flashback to this? And he's like, you probably think I'm mad. Well, let me tell you why. And you think I'll probably explain. I shouldn't explain, but it's so crazy that I should explain. So let me tell you what happened.
Yeah, and it's just all told in flashback. Yeah. But so the whole event is really set in motion, and so there is an opportunity for Tales from the Darkside to play the story up as though everybody is sort of seeing things like you can't really trust the narration of it, and yet. They don't do that at all.
No, it's just that
like right away the cat is clearly evil, and basically it becomes a cat and mouse game. Excuse my pun, between Halston and the cat, and they're both trying to kill each other.
I just love the fact that he offered him $100,000 to kill the cat.
Yeah,
and he's just like, yeah, I've never lost a hit, always gotten the hit done. Get the hit done.
Yeah, the thing with this segment is that after William Hickey sort of leaves and goes away, lets Halston do his own thing.
As far as the cat didn't kill him, why didn't the cat kill him?
It's true.
Where did he go for the day? Did he just
left. He's just like, I don't know.
So why the fuck did he come back? He might as well just be like, I'm not fucking.
Yeah, I'm coming back. The cat can have the house. I don't care. But David Johansen's character in this, he has the brunt of filling the time with just random dialogue. Like, I've never failed a hit. I always get basically like things like I always get my man. Just random.
I only drink the best. It's always the rich people who have the poor. They're black velvet.
Yeah. So this is one of those stories with the adaptation. And again, I have not read Stephen King's short story about this, The Cat from Hell. But this is one that I feel doesn't necessarily translate well to film because you've got to fill the empty spaces of action scenes with Halston hunting the cat with some sort of dialogue because, you're watching the film, you want to have, speech as well. And so Romero is filling it with Halston randomly talking to himself at every turn. And it just doesn't work as well as when if you were reading something like this and it would all be internal thought processes that Halston has.
I think it could have worked out fine if he wasn't like talking constantly to himself. I think what makes it even worse is the whole first person, the POV shots from the cat's perspective. That's
the one where it looks like it's a Cyclops cat because
like
it's only got one.
The fish-eyed purple, color. That's just so like fucking stupid.
Yeah.
And hilarious.
Yeah, they do. Yeah, it is really interesting that they make it as one circular view of the purple with like a shadow around the outskirts of it. Because the cat has two eyes, right? So you would expect it to be like, a double vision sort of thing where you see the actual two eyes from that perspective. But this really makes it look like the cat is a Cyclops. That is seeing in black and white. So,
I think it would have I just think all those shots are unnecessary. I think it would have been better just to see kind of like the cat and mouse game and just have it be like a silent stalking, and just constantly trying to and then getting one upped or something.
I think they weren't. They just weren't confident in having no speech whatsoever during those sequences. A lot of times now. Contemporarily, we're more open to seeing films that have long stretches of silence. But I remember when Castaway came out and somebody was going around saying, there's fucking 15 minutes of silence at the beginning of this film.
That's the best part about There Will Be Blood, the first 20 minutes.
Right.
Nothing.
And I guess maybe at the time, it wasn't well accepted or it was experimental.
Well, especially because coming from the TV realm, where it's you gotta have constantly have dialogue.
Yeah, and I guess maybe they just weren't confident in not having dialogue in those scenes. So they kind of shoehorn in dialogue to make Halston say just random things, talk about his whiskey, talk about having the best. And it feels really unnecessary to us. But maybe for whatever reason they felt like an audience at the time we could not handle just having silent, cat and mouse activity going on. I don't know.
Yeah, but they've done before, shots of people doing things and then having we hear their internal thoughts and them not actually vocalizing, but we hear it. I think again, they just, I don't think enough thought was put into it. Like I said, because for a TV show, it totally makes sense where the attitude is, we gotta have dialogue. It's a TV show, gotta keep the viewer, focused in.
Engaged.
We don't want them flipping the channel. We gotta have them, engaged in what's going on. So
yeah,
a film, you don't have to do that.
I mean, I think this film sits squarely, kind of tongue in cheek as well. I don't know that it's supposed to be taken completely seriously.
No, the cat fucking crawls inside somebody and then hulks out.
But honestly, K&B Effects did a pretty good job with the actual effects work of having the cat crawl in to his mouth and then crawl around in his body. I like that. I think it's pretty good. It reminds me of watching a cat go around in one of those plastic tunnels that they go into, the crinkle tunnels.
He really ate that pussy, didn't he?
Yeah.
Oh.
I think they did a pretty good job with it, though. I mean, especially for the time. They did a good job with the effects and making, at least for the most part, there's the occasional scene where the cat looks fake. It's they got a little...
Every time, when you can tell it's the fake cat, all I can think of is I just want to hear Nick Bakay's voice. Just want to hear Nick Bakay's voice.
Yeah. But other than that, I mean, I think they did a pretty good job with the effects, especially, and I think that reveal at the end is kind of good. I mean, I don't mind it, but again, this is another really simple setup
that would have been fine as a TV episode.
Yeah,
maybe not nowhere near as good as the first one, but it would have been a suit
Yeah.
Your mileage will vary, like, if you find that one to be enjoyable or unenjoyable as a TV episode.
I definitely think it's a little bit more tongue-in-cheek than that first episode of this segment. I think it's an okay short in this film, but, definitely nowhere near the level of interest that the first segment has.
And again, I think the acting is like just like with the first one. I think it's fine. I think it is, very enjoyable. I think they do a good job with what they're given. But I think overall the premise and then it's fine for it to be like a weird like you said tongue-in-cheek premise, but I just don't think it's executed well enough to where it's like, oh, that that was funny, or like, oh, I get it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree. I mean, I think they could have done a little bit more with it. All right, and on to the final segment in this movie. We have a love story. And I honestly don't know I got to look up the title of this segment because I honestly don't know it.
Like Lover's Vow or something?
Yeah, Lover's Vow. That's what it's called. This one is, again, written by Michael McDowell, and it follows an artist who is having a bad time as an artist. He's not selling any of his work. His agent is basically throwing him out on the curb. He's in a bar, and eventually he encounters a gargoyle-like creature who scratches him up and then says, "Never speak of me again."
After he takes someone's head off.
yeah, he kills one guy, but the other guy, he's like,
what reason? Why did the gargoyle do it?
No idea.
He just did it.
He just did it. He
lopped him right off.
Felt like, well, not only the head, but his arm as well. He just cuts his hand off, cuts his head off. He's like, yeah.
Fuck that guy.
Yeah, fuck that. I don't like that guy. But you know what? I'm going to let you live as long as you don't speak my name or show anybody my visage ever again.
The gargoyle talking is like the most hilarious thing.
It's actually...
It looks so fucking just like awful.
It's poorly done and also very difficult to kind of decipher. I don't know if it was the version that we watched or... if that was relevant to the film when it released, but the actual speech is hard to make out. Partly because you can't, there's no like lips to put it to, so because it's just a
flapping jaw,
gargoyle jaw, yeah, going up and down. The gargoyle design should have been left to the dark, like they should have kept the gargoyle shadowed. Because when the gargoyle steps out, it's
puppet
very...
and rubbery,
It's very much like a Jim Henson sort of creation. Like a...
it's time for the music
Dark Crystal Labyrinth,
it's time for the Muppet Show tonight. Bop, bop.
Yeah. So they should have left the gargoyle itself kind of shadowed. But I actually read... It's not super apparent from the episode itself, but I read that this is based on the Japanese yokai, the folklore of the Japanese demon. Not very apparent in this segment at all, but interesting to note nonetheless. But ultimately, after that gargoyle encounter, our main character. Not Wyatt. Maddox.
Preston.
Preston. Who's played by James Remar, who I don't know.
Yes, you do.
I do?
Yes, you do.
Who is he?
You've seen Dexter, right?
Like the first season.
So that's Dexter's dad.
Oh, okay. Didn't really put that together.
From my favorite film of all time, Mortal Kombat Annihilation. He plays Raiden.
Okay. All right. Didn't recognize for sure.
No, with that mullet, like how young and like kind of like he's a little ripped in this.
Yeah, that's true.
Not like like a toned rip, but kind of like that 90s dad bod ripped of like they're kind of just like big.
Yeah, chiseled.
Yeah. but they're not really like chiseled. They're just like kind of like hulking, like like steroids.
That's what he has. Yeah.
But he's kind of got like that. He's kind of look like if he kind of looks like if Brendan Fraser came out in the early '90s with that hair and.
That's true.
Yeah,
that's true. I could see that Brendan Fraser look.
I was happy to see him just because it's like,
James Remar, he hasn't done much. Yeah,
he's in his fair share of things, but it's just kind of like everything I've ever seen him in. I'm like, oh God, why are you in this?
But after that gargoyle encounter, Preston basically
is told, don't snitch, or I'll kill you.
That's right. And then he finds a woman and just randomly grabs her off the street into an alleyway. And proceeds to tell her, like, shh, it's okay.
I'm not going to rape you.
Yeah. Even though, like, this is a dangerous area, and he said you shouldn't be walking alone trying to find a taxi.
On the crow set.
Yeah, right, on the crow set. But this is basically a love story, and for the most part, Lover's Vow really doesn't have a lot of horror to it. After the gargoyle disappears, it's mostly about Preston and...
all the good fortune that he runs into.
Carola.
What an awful name, too.
Yeah, Carola, by the way. I thought at first that she was saying Carolyn, but no, it's Carola. It's Carola. It's basically about Preston and Carola living a fantasy life of getting together after a near rape, basically, or near kidnapping. And then,
well, you know what? She was turned on by it because by the end of the night, she's bedding him.
Oh yeah,
and he's bedding her.
Oh yeah,
that's where we get our booby shot.
They were all in. They're all in on
that nice blue light.
Yeah, you know that a sex scene is coming because of that blue light, and then both of them, that's the very stereotypical. You see one face moving forward, then you shoot to the other face moving forward, and you're like, yeah, they're getting it on. They're getting it on. It's going to be hot and heavy in this one.
It's so hot and heavy. The next morning, she's like, "I want to fuck you again."
She wants to do it again. What a life for Preston. His life was failing. He gets scratched by a gargoyle, and then
she's turned on by it too. She's like, hey, "Let me rub that alcohol rub on you."
Yeah, in sort of like a masochistic way.
Oh, sorry.
Or a sadistic way.
I was thinking like she was like, "Oh, I like that because you're an artist, and like you're such an artist. You cut yourself because you're." Pain.
I was just thinking she liked seeing him in pain because he's like going like, ooh,
she's like, sorry.
And she's like, oh yeah, I'm sorry,
yeah,
I'm sorry, I'm sorry. Let me do it again and again. Yeah,
let's make sure that infection doesn't get in there. Yeah,
sepsis, not fun. But so most of Lover's Vow is really just about Preston and Carola getting together. Carola. I don't know how to say this name. It's such a fucking weird name. Carola doesn't roll off the tongue.
We'll just go down for the rest of this review. The Toyota line, Prius.
Yeah, the name doesn't roll off the tongue. I'm sorry. Carola. It's about them getting together and just starting a family, and they end up having two kids.
She is able to introduce him to like the most revered
gallery owner in the city.
Yeah, and then she's pregnant. All of us, the timeline on this is very skewed. How long does it take for him to for his art to start selling, and they're together, and all of a sudden she's pregnant, and they're going to get married?
Yeah, you don't really get that idea of time. Like
it feels like it's 3 days.
Yeah, it's like blended together. But yeah, eventually she becomes pregnant, and he's just like...
if it is 3 days, I hate to tell it to you, it's not how that works.
Yeah. And then he's like, I really like his line, are we going to make this bastard legitimate? It's like the first thing that he says, he's like, let me rephrase. Will you marry me? Like, yeah, most of the time women don't really find...
absolutely loves it. Let's make this bastard
legitimate. Women don't really find that romantic.
Nice shotgun wedding,
Yeah. Make this bastard legitimate. Yeah.
Well, I hate to tell you, James, but seeing as you impregnated her out of wedlock, it's still a bastard.
Still a bastard. Yep. Nope. No doubts about that. You know what? This segment, I think it runs a little long with that romance. Towards the end, when it starts to get back to the gargoyle thing, and
10 years later,
yeah, the inevitable happens basically. That you know what's coming.
This asshole can't keep a secret.
Yeah, there's no. I mean, I think that if you're not thinking that Carola, I'll call her Carola, Carola. I have to think about the name now. It's just fucking weird. If you're not thinking Carola is the gargoyle, then like something's wrong with you. You know, because that's literally the only two characters in the film. You have...
What a sick, sadistic bastard that gargoyle is. I killed someone, lopped their head off, and now I'm going to transmute into a human and, you know, let them take me. And we're going to live this fake life for 10 years.
Was it love at first sight, do you think, for the gargoyle?
He's like, oh.
The gargoyle is like scratching his chest and is like, you know what? I actually like him.
He's shit. Yeah,
it's weird. Like the segment just doesn't like mesh together very well. Nothing really makes sense. There's no rhyme or reason to the fact like why the gargoyle needs him to keep it a secret. I mean, maybe if that's like the ingrained, you know, folklore of this demon, then yeah, but there's nothing to tell us that. So like at the end, she's just like, you broke your vow. I'm going to now, I have to murder. And he's just like, okay. I mean, I get it.
I almost feel like though by the end when she transmutes back into a gargoyle, that's not the same gargoyle that killed because it looks different and sounds like her.
I guess, yeah.
So maybe it was like her gargoyle brother that like...
Maybe, and she was just... Yeah, I guess you could say that. Maybe that's what they meant by that. I don't know. I just felt like... I mean, the ending doesn't really make sense because you're not given any of the rules of this gargoyle. You don't know, you know, why? Why keep it a secret? Why, if she loves this guy, does she have to kill him? It just doesn't make much sense. What I do love, though... are the little baby gargoyles. Those are great.
Looks like that dinosaur show.
Yeah, dinosaurs or whatever. Is that what it was called?
Yeah, I think so. It was all that also
I'm
on
the
CBS.
baby.
Yeah. Kick the baby.
Yeah, it does look like that. Yeah, but one thing that K&B did do well was the transformation scene. I think they did that pretty well.
Nice body horror.
Yeah, with the ripping off of all the things, the knees shooting through, stuff like that. They did a really good job with that.
Yeah, that's like nice body horror.
That's
a little Cronenberg-esque.
Yeah, it's like they took The Howling, you know, with the Howling changing, ripping skin off and stuff, and they kind of went a step further with the 90s and made it into the, you know, a gargoyle. But I think they did a really good job with that one. That's probably the best effect in this film, is getting that gargoyle change. You know, with that said, other than that, I don't think that Lover's Vow is a great segment for this movie. A little bit too much flat storytelling and not enough horror within it. Because you have long periods of time where there's just not really anything going on. It
does come across as like kind of like a low rent Twilight Zone episode.
Kind of, yeah.
Not on like the gargoyle premise, but like the kind of like how it's more focused on the characters than like the actual kind of spooky aspects.
Right, yeah.
You could kind of replace it with like a Twilight Zone episode, but instead of making gargoyles, make it something a little bit more grounded.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and then the whole thing being at the end is like the moral is, you know, keep your promises, stuff like that. Yeah, I can see that. I just felt like it kind of squandered some of the coolness of the gargoyles. Like, you know, we wouldn't want to see them again, morphing, things like that. K&B did such a good job with that it seems like they wasted some time not having gargoyles in the film. And then the other thing is that, like I said, we don't really have much of an understanding of these gargoyles. So, like, when they go back and turn into stone, like, is that because
he broke the promise?
Yeah, he broke the vow. Like, we don't really know anything about it. So, yes, you can kind of infer from that, but I just feel like you need a little bit more of the folklore behind the gargoyle in order to understand exactly what the film is trying to tell you. It just doesn't go that far.
I agree.
Yeah.
Every time I see gargoyles, all I can think of is the ending of the one Futurama episode where they're just sitting there going, Bon nuit. Bon nuit.
I don't think I know that one. I
can't remember what the episode is, but it just like ends and like you see gargoyles sitting on top of like a ledge and they're like, bon nuit.
You know what?
I think it might have been the Halloween episode for.
Could be. You know what, though? Gargoyles are pretty underrepresented in horror.
How dare you? They had their own Disney Channel show.
They did. And a Sega Genesis video game.
I thought for a second you were going to say, and it sucked. I was going to be like, how dare you?
No, I didn't watch enough Gargoyles
How
to
did
tell
you
you that
not?
it sucked. I had some action figures, and I had the Sega Genesis game. I don't know about the show, though.
Well, you should watch it. You'd probably like it. It's actually kind of adult.
The Genesis game is hard as hell, as most of them were. But
never could be Comic Zone.
no, that was a hard game. I don't think I could beat it now.
Get one life.
Fucking hard.
Go.
All right, so out of the three, which one is your favorite?
It ranks literally in the rank and file of how they
One,
were.
2, 3.
Yes, how they were showed to us. It'd be Lot 249, Hellcat, and then this.
I think I absolutely agree. I think that's maybe why they went with 1, 2, 3 in the order that they did.
You know, I'm starting to notice after watching all these, it's usually like the last one that's kind of the weakest one. Mm-hmm. Kind of like, always.
You're already here. We've got you now. You're not going to leave with 20 minutes left. Yeah, I could see that. I agree. 1, 2, 3 right through is the order that I would put them in as well. I think basically the one that shines the most is K and B. I think their effects are probably the best part of Tales from the Darkside.
And probably the sole reason why, like I said, why this is even a movie.
Yeah.
'Cause if you don't have those effects, these are nothing more than the B-list
regular episodes.
The B-list episodes that weren't good enough to be, put into the season. Like they were filmed, they were put in the can. Guess what? Don't need them. Got some other things to run. Okay.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I think that the first episode would be a very good episode of the series, and then the other two, they'd be, the...
If this was your sole intro, as this is my sole intro into Tales from the Dark Side, I can tell you right now from watching this film, does not make me want to watch the TV series. It'd make me go, no thank you. Maybe catch the highlights.
I can see that. You would just not be enthused to
if you were to
go
take
out
a
and
step
find them.
back, because you've already said you've had experience with the series. But if this was your first go with the series, after watching this movie, would you say, I gotta tune in on Thursday nights at 8 o'clock to watch this?
Yeah, probably not. Yeah. All right. So we gotta rate this film on a scale
Of 10.
of 10. Yeah. Oh, I thought you had something. I thought you were gonna give me something.
No, not this time.
We could do 10 Hearts of Glass. Really.
See, I was thinking more what was appropriate because Debbie Harry being in it. It was just she's maybe running around chasing the kids in a Benny Hill type mode, have it set to one way or another, I'm gonna find you,
Yeah, they didn't even throw any of those things in there.
Well, no, because they'd have to pay her extra.
That's true. They didn't want to have to pay royalties on top of actually paying her as an actress, right? No, I would say, let's see, on a scale of 1 to 10.
Christian Slater sweaters.
Or whatever that fucking jacket was that
James Raymer was wearing?
James Raymer was wearing. I don't know what that thing is, but it's hearts on a bomber jacket. Something he designed himself.
Nice knickers and a tie and it's you're right. Yeah, no, that is a very distracting garb he's wearing.
Yeah,
that bomber jacket with all the ornate
sewed on patches that he's got going on. We'll do that. We'll do, out of 10 ornate bomber jackets, what would you give Tales from the Dark Side the movie?
I'd give it probably a 6 out of 10. It's very much just here's the anthology. There's nothing special nothing about this film that I would say is really stand out. I do think the effects for the time are pretty good, especially at the end with the gargoyle and the body horror type aspect of the transformation. It looks pretty good. But for the most part, a lot of the things are tame, with the whole mummy and stuff. all the stuff's kind of off screen. Same thing with the second story. A lot of it's just off screen, and it's just more like here's some blood smatterings. The first story is definitely 249 is easily the best story. It's got the best cast, best acting, best overall plot, best pacing, and then everything else is very hit and miss. I would say I would only recommend this to fans of the series or people who just have a curiosity to see, like a young Steve Buscemi or something, or a young James Remar. Because other than that, there's really like, if this were like, as Tom Savini jokingly kind of said, like, oh, it's like Creepshow, this would be Creepshow 3, then obviously, yeah, you're right, because it's like in horror films, the trend from the beginning to your sequels totally downhill, and this would be your Creepshow 3, the low budgeted bastard version. I think
we did end up getting a Creepshow 3. I haven't seen it, but I think that was the low budget bastard version. Yeah. But I would agree. I guess I would give this like a 6.5. I'm giving it the benefit of the doubt because of K&B effects. I think it's an okay anthology film. I think it does, have 3 stories that are mediocre sometimes, Lot 249 being the best of them. I think the thing that really kind of bugs me about it is that the stories are really straightforward. They're just like, here's this, we're setting it in motion, and there's really no like twist or anything to any of these stories, like Creepshow might have, or Tales from the Crypt even, where there's a twist at the end that you're not really expecting, or sort of like comically tongue-in-cheek. None of these stories have that. They're really just straightforward. Yes, the cat is evil. Yes, the mummy is coming to kill you.
Yes, there's gargoyles.
Yeah, right. Yeah, exactly. And so I think like they just lost an opportunity to go a step further with those stories and make them something a little bit more. So, in that sense, the themes aren't really that great. I think that the effects work is pretty good. We do have quite a few people who would go on to have great careers, like Julianne Moore, Steve Buscemi. They all do a pretty good job. And, I think that this is a good attempt. And like Tales from the Darkside, the TV series, it's just it falls short of being great like some of the other anthologies that we've witnessed previously, like Creepshow and even Tales from the Crypt, both the movie and the series. It just doesn't hit those heights. But it certainly gives it an attempt. And it has a lot of the the ideas that it needs. It adapts a Stephen King story. You got George Romero as part of the writing process here. It just doesn't go far enough, I think.
I will say, though, I will give it credit, though, because if this is any inclination of what the TV show is like, then congrats for being kind of true to the IP. Where Spielberg just shat on the Twilight Zone.
Yeah. At least this one feels like a Tales from the Darkside TV show.
And that, like I said, that's probably for me the biggest problem. Like, this comes off as just a big budgeted TV movie.
Yeah, it's pretty similar. I mean, it's right there. So I can see that.
So what do we got next?
Next, I have to think about this now because
I can't remember because we're doing.
Honestly, we have. I think we're moving into the 2000s,
and we got 2.
I think we got 2. So I have to look and see. I think I know what's coming next, and it's one that we've wanted to do for quite a while. I think, if I'm remembering correctly, and I'm pretty sure I am. We got 2 weeks left. Is that right?
3 weeks.
Huh? We got 3? 3 till Halloween? I'm actually not sure. It's either 2 or 3. I can't remember.
I thought we were doing 2 for the 2000s too, but maybe we no. No, we got 2 more after this. So
2 more. You're right.
Okay, so we're not doing the other one that I thought we were doing.
Yeah, I guess not. So we're moving into.
Sorry, folks. No VHS.
What's that?
No VHS.
No, I don't think we're not going to get to that. We're going to have to do Antholoween Part 2 at some point.
Yeah, 10 years later.
And do that, something like that. But
I've always wanted to watch it just because it's been on Netflix for like since the dawning of Netflix.
There are so many.
I've just been kind of like, why is this always popping up on like my suggestions?
There's so many anthology movies. I mean, just a lot. I think we will definitely revisit anthology films because there's a lot that we didn't cover. I mean, talking about cats, we didn't do Cat's Eye. Cat's Eye is a Stephen King film about various Stephen King stories, all based around a cat. So there are just so many anthologies that we didn't cover. So we'll obviously be doing Antholoween Part 2 at some point. But, for now, the next one is a pretty popular film, anthology film from the 2000s that we really wanted to do. And we'll leave it at that.
That Ryan wanted to do.
That's right.
It's Trick or Treat.
I said we'll leave it at that. Well, the cat is out.
Honestly, you know what? No, you might as well not hide it because this is a film that's been talked about since day one.
That's true. It'll be a fun one to do, I think. We'll have a blast.
I honestly literally thought it was, excuse me, thought it was like a 2010s film. I didn't know it was that old.
Yeah, it's 2007, I think, or something like that.
But then I think about it, Krampus is actually kind of getting up there in age too now.
That was 2010 or something like that.
Yeah,
so we're it's kind of interesting how time flies. But yeah, so Trick or Treat next week. And then we got one more week to go, and we'll do one more anthology series that's in the 2010s. And that one is actually another one set around Halloween. So just another hint for you. Thanks for listening. We are on pretty much every podcasting app that you can think of. We're on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Stitcher, Podbean. So anywhere that you can listen to us, please subscribe and leave us a nice review. We are on Facebook at facebook.com/Blood and Black Rum Podcast. We're on Twitter at Blood and Black Rum. We have an email address at bloodandblackrumpodcast@gmail.com. And of course, we have a Patreon page where you can donate to us and help us keep the podcast running. It's patreon.com/Blood and Black Rum Podcast. And there are a few treats for you if you hit certain levels of the donation station. So definitely keep that in mind. Help us out if you can, and we really appreciate it. Thanks for listening to our Antholoween series. We will be back with our 6th episode in the series, which is Trick or Treat, next week. So continue to listen to us.
Take care.